commensurate with the institution of these renewables. And it's not because electricity's become more expensive to produce at coal or gas or nuclear plants. In fact, nuclear plants are cheap. Once you pay for the initial cost of what create, the uranium is dirt cheap. Coal is the least expensive way to produce power in the state. And yet, the new EPA standards are going to accelerate the closure of coal plants across the entire country. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, in fact, has just filed suit against the EPA because they realize we're retiring so many coal plants that we're going to have reliability issues, because all we're doing in the United States right now is producing wind and solar facilities. That doesn't mean we're producing more electricity. In fact, in Kansas, because of the addition of all these facilities, we have 50% more generation capacity in this state right now than we need. So it's like you can't use all the generating capacity we have. But by putting more of these in, we're contributing to the increase in electric rates in the state of Kansas. And just this week, Evergy filed let me see if I can find it. It was a predetermination docket with the Kansas Corporation Commission to add resource additions to the Evergy fleet. What that means is more wind and solar, because they're going to get more subsidies. They don't need the power. In fact, the Southwest Power Pool, which we're part of, has almost 100% more generation capacity than they need. So every time one of these resources comes online for wind or solar, all we're doing is adding more cost to everyone in this room, because we have to pay for the transmission lines. And by the way, none of the generation from those facilities stays in Kansas. We're shipping it out to Illinois and Missouri and Oklahoma. And so just none of this makes any sense whatsoever. I could go on for a long time, but I think you kind of get the sense. I just barely scraped the surface. I could probably talk for a couple of hours, and I have done so in other counties who are fighting this, but I think you see that just like the problems you face with wind, there are so many things to know. There are so many issues to make sure you're making the right decision on, that a moratorium on solar is a wise decision. I've also fought for transparency at the state level with regard to anyone who has substantial interest in any of these farms, that they should recuse themselves from making decisions. I think it should be transparent. I'll just end on this one note and then open for questions, and we'll see where it goes. With regard to energy, the energy return on investment is the most important thing you can consider. What you want to do to be green and clean and sustainable is create the most energy with the least number of resources, right? So with a nuclear power plant or a coal or gas plant, just to create 1 megawatt of electricity takes about 12 acres. For a solar farm, it would be approximately 989 acres to create 1 megawatt. And for wind, it's about 1,600 acres for 1 megawatt. So nuclear has an energy return on investment of 80 to 1. For every 1 unit it takes to produce nuclear energy, it produces 80 units of energy. Coal and gas, it's about 50 to 55 to 1. Wind and solar, it's 1 to 1. And in fact, because wind and solar facilities are electric, they actually require electricity to run because of the power inverters. Solar not as much as wind, but it's some. You're actually a net loss in energy. And then you've got all these decommissioning problems, massive. We're talking just the wind alone. Let me give you an example. We have over 4,000 wind turbines in the state of Kansas. It will cost the state or somebody at the current price about $8 billion to decommission all the wind turbines in the state. And I'll guarantee you it won't happen. It You'll have broken down wind turbines everywhere. The same will happen with solar facilities. We also don't, it just doesn't make sense. In Kansas, we are not in the southern latitude. During the winter, you get snow and ice storms. These solar panels will be exposed to. The sun goes down once every day, the last time I checked. And so you're guaranteed for it not to operate. The only people who are going to benefit from this will be the big power companies, the big law firms, the big businesses, and the folks who have been on this marketing ploy are going to regret it, because these are intergenerational decisions that will affect ag land. I keep saying this is the last thing I'm going to say. Like I said, I could go on forever. This is it. Remember, the property tax valuation on ag land is on 30% of the valuation. For residential, it's only 11.5. So the property tax loss to the county is 2 times larger, almost 3 times larger than the property tax loss if you replace residential with solar. And I don't think you want a big solar farm right in the middle of it. So this is long-term. There's a lot of things to consider, and I'll open it up to you.
Well, you mentioned something about the fires.
Yes.
And they're very hard to put out. The Canadian government, the firefighters union, sent a letter to the government saying they will not fight wind or solar fires anymore.
Right.
Killing people. So you got the toxic smoke from the fires as far as our Kansas wind will take it, killing people in Nebraska, potentially making them sick. And then the galvanization and all the other hail damage, minerals in the groundwater. It's going to affect the local watersheds. This particular site's close to Cross Creek, which feeds the city of Rossville and another county. I mean,
It's huge. You say you get one of these fires, these lithium-ion batteries, which are in these giant battery storage units, lead polyfluoroalkyls. These are PFAs. If you've ever seen the movie Dark Waters about Monsanto and the Teflon and how it can create birth defects and cancer, these PFAs, we're just learning more and more about how it leaches into the soil. That's in these giant lithium-ion batteries. You know, everybody thinks wind and solar is green and clean. They're not. It takes huge amounts of backup generation for these even to exist. So if you want to, if your goal is to reduce CO2 in the atmosphere, which it shouldn't be, by the way, and I'm an expert on climate change, I can talk to that for about 2 hours. You should want more electrical generation from nuclear, coal, and gas, because the energy return on investment has a much smaller footprint than these things at all. It doesn't make sense. Lynn County just banned both wind and solar. And so there are counties making that decision. You are not hanging out there on your own. I've been from Republic County to Nemaha County, and I've been all over the state, and I see people facing these same problems. And I'm a Kansas native. I don't like what's happening in this land with regard to these renewables. I'm afraid our next generation has been misled severely, and I feel very bad for that. And that's why I'm here to speak out.
well, you're not a resident of Jackson County.
No, I'm not.
So you have no vested interest in either side.
None whatsoever.
Since you've been constrained by time, would you please come back and talk to us again when we can give you more time?
We'll love it. Absolutely. I think, like I said, feel free to contact me. Like I said, I want to be a resource. That's why I'm serving as a senator. I anticipate I'll still be on the utilities committee coming forward, so these are big issues for me. Has been for the last 5-6 years. Actually, I've been studying this for over 20 years before I got into the Senate, but it's important to me, and I don't want to see small communities and small rural towns like I grew up in being taken advantage of. I truly don't. So thank you very much.
Can I speak?
Yeah.
I'm a renewable leasing agent. My name is Chris Beadle.
Chris, hold on, I was going to ask a question.
Yes.
Can I ask a question?
We have like 2 minutes. We're already delaying another group of
I just was wondering if you could ban batteries. I thought that was in the regulations that
We haven't seen the regulations.
But I guess my question would be, could you ban the batteries?
Well, here's the thing. If you ban batteries, there's absolutely zero storage of the electricity that the solar,
So you could.
you could.
Yeah.
I mean, the leases include the batteries, okay? So that's
I'm
part of
talking
the
about
deal.
the county banning the batteries.
As part of the regulation, absolutely, because there's no regulation in the state that even requires,
And how many acres did you say you could megawatt or so?
Minimum.
I thought it was more like solar panels.
well, here's
Because I think that 3,000 acres would come close to 500 megawatts, which is like half of
right.
Wolf Creek.
That's nameplate capacity.
Okay.
But let me explain that very quickly. Nameplate capacity is what it's capable of producing if it's producing full out 24/7, okay? But the capacity factor is what's important. Capacity factor is how much it actually produces over time. Wolf Creek has a maximum capacity factor of 101%. So it can actually produce more energy than it's rated to produce. But because of all the changes in sunlight, the sun angle, the inefficiencies, the capacity factor for solar is about 10 to 15% maximum. So you might have a 100 megawatt field, but it's only going to produce about maximum about 15 megawatts of electricity.
And grasses, they can be grown, right? I mean, I know the ones you look at, the huge ones on, oh, I'm sorry.
Sir, I'm sorry, I allowed you to take, I asked 2 questions already.
Okay.
Sir, if you want to just ask,
Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the leases, because that's what I do. Typical renewable lease is not tied to production, it's tied to whether or not the improvement is there. So you're paid as long as that is there. The removal is bonded into the contract. So that is not something that the landowner or the county is on the hook for. They don't do leases like that. No one can mortgage your property, they don't have title to it. They can mortgage their share of the project, but that property remains entitled to you. No one can mortgage it out from under you.
Their bond and their bankrupt, aren't that?
Well, the bond is money put aside ahead of time. Different. Or removal.
So you're saying $500 million it costs to put it in, and $500 million plus the accrued value in the future to remove it, is somewhere getting fed over time for the next
It's bonded
20 years?
in.
No, man, not just saying funded. They're gonna continue to feed hundreds of millions of dollars into it.
Well, it's not gonna cost that much.
Oh, really? The Department of Energy's say different. Where do you get your numbers?
Okay. I think that,
There's value in the material that they're removing that pays for part of that, but the project's are bonded.
Who pays for it? Or if you're bankrupt, who pays for it?
The bond. That's what you do, you put money into a bond and it's set aside to cover that. But the main thing is, no one can mortgage your property out from underneath you, they don't have time to do it. The leases are based on the improvement being there, not production.
could you just take your name?
Chris Beaver.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, it is now 8:08, we are 8 minutes into the next meeting's time. So I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.